All right. So lesson number 6 is how to line up your structure with your strategy. Right. So we talked about vision, we talked about strategy, and we talked about leadership values. So now the next thing we need is to create structure, right? And structure answers the question, who must do what? Right. And this is so important because now we don't have people doing redundant responsibilities and we don't have people doing stuff that's busy work, but not progress work. And so who must do what? And so this is your org chart. And so your structure defines how your team is positioned to help you accomplish your strategy. Right? How are we positioning people? What roles are we placing them in to help accomplish the strategy? And here's one of the biggest issues. Our teams are not structured to fulfill the strategy, right? They're not positioned in a way. So again, we've got people doing busy work, not necessarily making progress. And so in order to do this, number one, we create org charts. And number two, we create position agreements. Okay? And so your org chart is really based on your strategy. And so if you remember when we talked about Hungry for God, right, we said that their strategy was revival plus relationships equals reformation. Well, let's take a quick look at their org chart. They have a revival department. Okay. And then they have a relationships department. Okay. So what do? We took our strategy and we said, hey, if these are the 3 to 5 things we've got to do to accomplish the vision, then we're going to make it that important that we're going to assign someone to oversee that, right? Unless you put a name by a responsibility, it's not going to get done. So we organize our ministry around our strategies. Okay, let me give you one more example. This is Selah City. So their strategy was every person would have an encounter with Christ, expand that relationship, and extend that love to others. And so what do? We created an encounter department, an expand department, and an extend department. So encounter handled all of their worship, expand handled all of the discipleship and spiritual growth, and extend handled all of their outreach. Okay? So we took what was a strategic step and we turned it into an actual organizational chart. So in order to do that, there's 4 simple steps. Number 1 is we're going to list your strategy steps out. Number 2, we're going to turn your strategy steps into actual departments. Number 3, and this you can or can't, you don't have to do, but number 3 is we typically add what we call an administrative or an operations department. The purpose for that department is to handle stuff like finance, HR, anything that's kind of supports the ministry side of things. I'm sorry. And then the last one is to position your ministries and departments. So you've got ministries, and then you're going to say, okay, does it fall in this department? If a ministry does not fall within a department, then again, you've got to ask the question, should we be doing this ministry? Okay. So step 1, list your strategy steps. Okay, right? We did this in the last, we talked about this, right? Coming up with the strategy. So you just write them down. Whatever your strategy was from the previous lesson, you just want to write it down. Step 2, we're going to turn them into departments. And so again, encounter, expand, extend. We're just creating them as departments. Step 3 is add an admin or operations department, right? And so again, if you've got any additional areas, maybe you've got a setup team, a maintenance team, right? That would typically fall under your operations department. And then step 4, you're going to place the other ministries, whatever ministries you currently have that are active, under the appropriate department. Okay, so for example, here we placed the worship team, we placed the tech team, we placed the ushers team, We placed a small groups team under Expand, Membership, Next Gen, and it just helps us align our ministries under our strategy so that we can utilize the strategy to accomplish the vision. Okay. Let me say this. You may have certain departments. So as we look at this, you may have certain departments that have been in existence for years, and you may not be in a position to shut that department down. Then what I would say is de-emphasize that department. And what that means is this. When I first started overseeing small groups, we had a women's Bible study that had about 5 women who would get together and meet every Saturday morning. They did not want to become a small group. And we said, okay, we're not going to fight a battle. Here's what we're going to do. We're not going to make announcements around that Bible study. We're not really going to give it a ton of support or a ton of shine. You can continue to have it, but we're going to focus all of our announcements and all of our energy towards the small groups that we're doing. So what eventually happened? We de-emphasized it. Some of the members who were taking that Bible study said, hey, we're going to do the small groups. And eventually that leader said, you know what, maybe I should become a small group. But you don't have to create battles. That's the major point. When you want to create change, you don't always have to, it doesn't have to be a battle. Sometimes just de-emphasizing something allows you to just shift your energy to something else. And if it's the Lord, it's going to continue to exist, and God's going to prompt you to give it the energy and the focus it needs. But if it's not the Lord, and you continue to give it energy, you are placing resources in the wrong baskets. And so it's just something you want to be conscious and aware of. And as I mentioned, if it doesn't fit, you've got to have conversation around it. Okay. So I want you to just work on the structure, work on an org chart. In the workbook, we actually provide you with a template for an org chart. Let me say this, one quick thing. There's no such thing as perfect. So as you're working on these things, if you find yourself taking an extraordinary amount of time to actually get an answer or to come up with something, you might be taking more time than's necessary, right? You might be having perfection issues. You're not going to get it perfect. You want to make progress, right? Progress means today it's okay, but I work on it some more. Tomorrow it becomes better. I work on it some more. I wake up one day and it's actually good. Then I work on it some more. And then one day I wake up and it's like, wow, this thing is really good. But you don't get to really good overnight. It's over time. So the best way to get to really good is by starting with being okay today, right? There's a book somewhere in this bookshelf. I'm not going to look for it. The title is Action Trumps Everything. And the premise behind it is taking action is what's important. I remember hearing a preacher a long time ago. They said, you can't redirect a parked car. But if the car's in motion and it's heading in the wrong way, you can always bust a U-turn. And so make progress. Don't be afraid to make changes. But if you make no progress, you'll never get to that finish line.